Monster movies are making a giant comeback to the mainstream. With Godzilla beginning a proper series for the Western audience, Shin Godzilla bringing the creature back to its roots for Japan, and Kong Skull Island doing well in its box office release that plans to merge its world with the 2014 Godzilla, Pacific Rim finally receiving a sequel, and Universal Studios rebooting its beloved monster movie franchise starting with The Mummy, even though that movie was really shitty, it's good to see significant activity in this genre once again. But is this not enough to quell your hunger for giant monster bashing action? Well, I've got a game that might be worth looking into. A very early attempt was King of the Monsters, made by SNK back in 1991, although that played more like a wrestling game and left much to be desired. And Rampage is, not good. Now everyone knows about Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee. Don't get me wrong, it's a great game that would please pretty much any Godzilla fan on the face of the planet, unlike that miserable excuse of a Godzilla game on PlayStation 4. Still, I feel as though that title hogged all the attention when it came to monster movie fans looking for a game to scratch that vicious itch of theirs. That game was also entirely focused on Godzilla along with his allies and adversaries throughout the franchise. What about the monster movies that didn't get a good, if any, video game treatment, such as King Kong, the Deadly Mantis, the Crawling Eye, and Daimajin? Yeah, come on, you never heard of Daimajin? Well, I've got the game for you. War of the Monsters for PlayStation 2. Released in January of 2003, developed by Incognito Entertainment, the company behind most of the Twisted Metal series. You know, the good ones. It's a third-person brawler that pits you up against 3 other monsters in various locations across the globe. Speaking of monsters, despite the roster not being composed of household names like King Kong, Godzilla, and Daimajin, come on, you've never heard of Daimajin? These behemoths maintain an air of familiarity while retaining all of their charm. Even if you're not a science fiction buff, you can easily tell who the characters drew their inspiration from. The gameplay is very simple, not too hard to grasp the combos of each monster. Light melee attacks and projectile attacks are both mapped to square, and it depends on your proximity of the enemy. A very interesting choice of game design in order to keep the controls simple. Each creature also has a unique attack that embodies the archetype they represent, good for getting yourself out of sticky situations or make quick work of your opponent. You can also take advantage of the environment surrounding you, such as grabbing pylons to impale your enemies for easy stuns. But be careful, sometimes the environment itself can also harm you. 2 players can also go head-to-head to decide once and for all who is the leader of the giant creatures. While this mode is normally split screen, if the players approach each other, they morph into one big screen, sporting this dynamic angle that's a staple in monster battles. If that shit isn't charming, I don't know what is. Besides that, there's also the adventure mode. Go at it alone or take on the entire roster, including unlockable characters and bosses. While strategizing against enemies usually amounts to spacing and the occasional javelin throw, the bosses here are where you really need to hang back and figure out not only how you can hurt them, but how you can avoid the serious damage from their devastating attacks. For each character, completing the campaign grants you a beginning. Yeah, not an ending. Dissimilar to the Twisted Metal games, you're given each monster's origin. No real narrative, but it's a nice treat as a reward that adds replay value for when you're curious of the other characters and their births into monsterdom. That's a word, right? Speaking of replay value, each fight earns you currency that can be used to unlock extra characters, skins, and minigames. One of those minigames I can't even figure out. Was this finished? The environment and sound effects work well with the settings, but what really stands out is the soundtrack. It has a full orchestra composing these epic pieces of work that fit these monumental fights perfectly. With all of this, you've got a really fun brawler that will satisfy the monster movie fans who wanted a game that's more feature film classic and has a western feel to it. Not only are used copies of the PlayStation 2 version relatively cheap, you can buy a digital version for either PlayStation 3 or 4 and it goes for under $10. With monster movies making a huge comeback in mainstream media, there isn't a better time to check out War of the Monsters. Unleash the gigantic beast within! Or be a scrub and pick this cheap asshole. Thanks for watching.